A man travels a train uncomfortably at the start of the story. He starts running wildly as soon as he gets off, but someone who somehow knows his secret finds him. The man demonstrates his incredible fighting prowess as he repels many attackers as this group fills the area with smoke. This guy takes out a blade of his own to defend himself after the attackers hurl multiple blades at him. Afterwards, the assailants employ metal needles known as senban, but this person has incredible reflexes. He can catch them with his teeth and shoot them back at the assailants. Sadly, the sheer volume of them overwhelms this man. When something grabs hold of his neck and drags him, a terrifying-looking figure captures him. This nasty man finishes the man out with his sword after slamming him into the ground. After confirming with a gadget that their victim has been eliminated, the attackers depart. In another scene, Joe, the farmer, is content with his life on the land and ultimately comes home to work on his motorcycle. As his little son Kyle tries to sneak up on him during a game they are playing, he informs the child that he has eyes on the back of his head. When Joe's wife Sarah arrives, she remarks on how filthy Joe's face has become. According to Kyle, his mask resembles that of the Oni, who are incredibly evil beings. Joe cautions him that the Oni may believe he is one of them, but Kyle is confident that if they pursue him, his large, strong dad will resist them. Joe quips that he's not sure if he can defeat these made-up characters, but Sarah promises to defeat them on Kyle's behalf. In jest, Joe remarks that he needs to get his motorcycle fixed quickly because Sarah is going to get into a lot of trouble fighting the Oni. When the earlier man's death is described in a news report later, Sarah is worried that the Oni may have been the cause of his death. It's time for this kid to go to bed, but Kyle is positive that it was them. Joe tells the child that his birthday is approaching as he bids his mother good night. While Kyle is sound asleep, Joe carefully monitors the security cameras he has installed throughout his home. Sarah is worried about the way the man was removed, and she is even more disturbed about the fact that no information about his identity was discovered. Joe reassures her that nothing is wrong and that nobody will discover them in the middle of nowhere. Joe argues that since he has always operated alone, this cannot be him, as Sarah is most worried about someone known as the Reaper. The following day, when Joe removes their fingerprints from a door handle, we see how careful he is to keep their identity a secret. After that, the young family continues to live a regular, pleasant existence. And as he lifts his son's spirits, Joe tries his hardest to be a decent father. Another victim is said to have died at the hands of an unidentified organization one evening. Since this is the first of several incidents that have happened recently, a thorough investigation is being conducted to determine what is going on. A lovely picnic is enjoyed by the loving family on Kyle's birthday. As they sing and blow out the candles on Kyle's favorite kind of birthday cake, they all crack jokes. Joe offers Kyle a new helmet and he opens a present to see a video game. Joe says he liked this one better than the scary Oni mask, so Kyle says he's no longer the evil guy. He's a hero now. The family all throws a warm embrace around one another as Sarah remarks that she simply enjoys seeing his regular face. They all tell each other how much they adore one another since they are so happy together. Joe goes out of bed that night, but he instructs his wife to stay in bed with composure. Joe descends the stairs, where everything appears to be in order. Joe is attacked at that moment when something emerges in the window. He manages to seize one of their weapons thanks to his extraordinary talent, and he dispatches several of these warriors with his sword. Joe hears his son calling out to him as he destroys one guy. Alert, Joe leaps to action right away. He completely destroys the assailant after blocking him when he tries to stop him. While reaching for something, Joe gets shot in the neck by 2 metal needles fired by another attacker in his haste to locate his family. But Joe isn't going to let that deter him, and he crawls up the steps. He is overcome by excruciating pain, and we catch a glimpse of an enigmatic figure outside. When Joe finally reaches the second story, he discovers that a number of his assailants had been neutralized. But when Joe discovers Kyle and Sarah's lifeless bodies lying on the ground, he is shocked. Joe's body is overcome with shock, and the scary-looking man tells him that Joe's wife fought hard. This monster slashes her neck with his blade, sparking Joe's intense fury, but he receives a backstabbing. In an attempt to reach his family, Joe drags the assailant, but the physical harm is too much for him to bear. The attackers realize that someone must have called the police since they hear their sirens in the distance. They depart just in time to see the cops because the leader attests to Joe's death. When the police go to the scene, they discover the murdered family and are shocked. Joe appears to be dead for a while before regaining consciousness. His first thoughts are of his deceased family, and the only reason he throws up is the intense sorrow that is taking over his body. When Joe awakens the next morning, he is in a hospital, and the nurse quickly makes a doctor's appointment. Joe merely mentions his spouse, L, to him, and he collapses once more. When Joe finally awakens, a doctor tells him that the coroner had already declared him dead, and that he miraculously survived. Joe only wants to know about his son and wife and could not care less. He is informed, however, that they were unable to make it. We can see that two people have been by to see him outside. They are FBI agents named Mike and Emma. They inquire about the potential identity of the attacker in an effort to aid in their investigation. Even while Joe stays silent, Mike can tell that he is growing agitated. Probably the worst time to ask him questions is now. Mike simply leaves his card there. Although Mike tells Emma it's simply a hunch, he thinks Joe is aware of the assailants' identities. He determines that everyone will watch him in turn, and Emma is the first to go up, keeping an eye on Joe from the roof. Joe remembers being taken to say farewell to his family only a few moments ago. Joe had engaged the wheelchair's brakes, which is why the nurse discovered that he was no longer able to propel Joe. Joe was so furious that he could not bear to be around his family's bodies any longer. Joe grows enraged as he finds himself back on his roof, his wife and son flashing across his mind. His fury approaches a breaking point. Then he goes for his wrist once more, removing a metal needle this time. Joe uses it to pierce himself and performs an odd bodily function. At that moment, multiple assassins attack Joe. Still brimming with rage, he loses control and dispatches multiple assailants with skill. Joe somehow gains control of the fight and displays incredible power and dexterity. But that's not all. Joe uses some sort of jutsu to transform his body into a black smoke. This is an extremely potent maneuver because it lets him instantly take out multiple assassins. Emma is unaware of what is happening, but Joe knocks her unconscious rather than assisting her in learning. Then, a furious Joe kept up his relentless attack, and he instills dread in the minds of his opponents. Mike is perplexed as to why Emma isn't returning his calls and surprised to discover more corpses. The assassin commander finds Joe when he ends up close by. Joe becomes enraged and launches a vicious attack on the leader after memories creep in once more. However, it's clear that this leader is different from the others because he successfully protects himself and even manages to surround Joe with a device. Joe manages to release himself swiftly, but the fight stays evenly balanced. Eventually, though, Joe makes use of his shadow skill once more, which enables him to deliver a devastating blow. Joe immediately responds with more strikes, and the fight is soon finished. Joe wants to know how they discovered him, his family, and how he realized it was indeed him. The commander sarcastically says that although Joe can alter his appearance to his heart's content, he will always be doomed. Then Joe surprises him by taking off his disguise. Joe simply ends the leader's life without saying anything else. Joe visits his family after that. He falls to his knees, barely able to take one more glance. Joe then goes back to his house and drills a hole in a wall. He takes out a box he had hidden, and we discover it is filled with various things, including a mask. Joe looks at an image that makes him think about his folks all over again. Just before Joe lights his house on fire, we get one last glimpse of it. Joe puts on the mask as he watches the formerly calm and love-filled life burn away. Even if the fire eats away at every last memory, Joe's rage is evident. Thank you for watching my recap. I hope you found the video entertaining. If so, please show us some love by giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If you would like to see more videos like this, click the one that is displayed. Arigato.